Yo, what is going on? This is your guy, the Pokebinder, Renton, Washington, and I'm coming back with another non-POB vendor video just for you guys. And this video is gonna be about some tips and tricks for your first car show, whether it'll be your first, second, third, or fourth, or if you're an expert, and maybe I'll cover some tips and tricks that you haven't heard of. So stay tuned so that way you do not get fleas by those evil vendors. I'm gonna go ahead and be the rat, the snitch, give you all my vendor secrets so that way you don't get taken advantage of. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with this. All right, first tip, and this is the most important tip out of all the tips that I'm about to give you. All right, bring a binder. Bring something like this. This is what I use when I go and go to my car shows to buy stuff for myself. I always bring a binder to put all the cards that I'm gonna buy. With that being said, another important thing that I recommend that you should carry all the freaking time is sleeves and top loaders, so that way you can top your car.
What did you say?
Pause. Anyways, yeah, you don't want to be getting caught lacking, not putting your cars in sleeves. Use protection. That's what your mom showed you. And if you want to use extra protection, which you should always do, use the toppy. Always top your cards. All right, second trick or tip: know your prices. I cannot stress this enough. Make sure that when you are coming to these car shows, you have an idea of what the value of your cards are, especially if you are there to sell or even buy. You want to make sure that you know some of the prices, and if you don't know right there and there, I would recommend downloading two apps. I'm not being sponsored by any of them, but I use these apps all the time, literally all the time. Like when you see me vending, these are the two apps that I use literally every time that I vend. And why is because they pull prices for a lot of these cars, so that way I personally don't get fleeced. I try to recommend this to everybody that comes to my table. I show everybody what I use, but one of the apps that I use is Red Candy and the other one is Alt. Red Candy essentially is for your raw cards. It'll give you pricing from TCG, and then Alt will be for your slabs. So that will pull prices from eBay and other markets around the internet. So that way, if you're trying to buy a greater card, you can get the best price for that slab. Now, with that being said, third tip or trick would be negotiate. Always negotiate. So don't always pay the sticker price. Do your research. Make sure that you're not overpaying for cards, and also make sure that you get a little bit of a discount as a vendor. A lot of vendors are probably gonna hate me for this, but obviously you guys know we buy at a percentage, so we have a little bit of leverage to be able to work with everybody. And if a vendor tells you otherwise, they're lying, and you should probably move on and find a vendor that can work with you. So always negotiate, whether if it's $5 or $10, and if the vendor doesn't want to work with you, that's already a red flag. But yeah, if you want to just save $5 to $10, which I believe personally that is reasonable, always ask for a little bit of a discount. Fourth tip or trick, I believe we're on the fourth one. Always walk the floor first. All right, make sure that you are walking around. Make sure you are aware of your surroundings and your environment, and you're talking to vendors, and make connections with vendors. I think that is the most important thing, and this ties in with walk the floor first. Talk to vendors, get the vibe out of each one of them. And if you are vibing with a certain vendor, there will be most likely the chance to have a way better experience than if you go to a vendor that you've never talked to before, and you try to buy a few cards and try to ask for a discount. More that that vendor will probably say no. Me personally, I like to have conversations with my customers and talk about Pokemon because that's something that I'm passionate about. I've been on the other side of the table where I go and try to purchase things from other vendors that I've never seen before. And sometimes, it's a very awkward kind of just going to the table and, asking them to see a card and, trying to talk to them, and they're just not interested at all in having a conversation with you, but just trying to make a sale. So again, walk the floor, talk to vendors, try to get, that those connections with certain vendors, and, figure out a strategy to see who will treat you the best, because as a Pokemon vendor, the job isn't hard. We are just there, for 5 to 8 hours, and we are there to provide Pokemon cards and a good experience, in my perspective, to collectors. So walk the floor, and also make sure that you are, looking at what each individual vendor is pricing their cards at. So by walking the floor, it gives you the opportunity to be able to check prices. So if you see a card with one vendor and then you see that same card with a different vendor, you can compare prices and also be able to get, the best deal, because that's what it's all about. Since you're not buying online and you're buying in person, you get to save, the fees that you would have to usually pay on eBay. So yeah, always make sure that you are walking the floor. And with that being said, our fifth tip or trick is be friendly with vendors. Don't just go to a Pokemon show, and, try to act up, or, try to feel like you're better than everybody else. At the end of the day, this is a community where people tend to be pretty friendly and pretty welcoming. I would say 90% of the time, people are super, super cool and super chill. And everybody is there to help each other out, right? So when you are out there trying to talk to vendors, get to know that person, get to know and see how knowledgeable they are about Pokemon. See what their favorite card is. Ask them, questions, or ask them or tell them about your favorite Pokemon card, and then have a conversation. I think 90% of the vendors that I personally know love to have conversations just about Pokemon and nothing else. Even if you're just stopping there and you're just talking to them and you are having a positive attitude, they will give you that same energy. And my 7th tip to have the best experience at a Pokemon card show is stay organized. So what I mean by stay organized is keep your trade binder clean. Make sure that if you are there to trade, you separate the cards that you are there to trade, and if you have your personal cards there, make sure that you separate them and that you are vocal to the vendors and let them know what is up for grabs and what is not. Set that boundary, because a lot of vendors will think that when you hand over your binder for a trade or to sell, that everything is for sale. So make sure that you are vocal and you keep your binder organized. And yeah, keep it organized. That's it. An organized binder is a good binder. And for our 8th tip or trick is respect the space. Don't block tables or interrupt deals. Make sure that when you are at a table and the vendor is busy talking to other people, make sure that you wait your turn. It's all about being respectful and being aware of your surroundings. The 9th tip or trick for your first Pokemon card show is have fun, and network. I think the best thing about going to a card show, despite all the negative things going on the internet about vendors and card shows, is have fun, network. Car shows are about community and finding people that love the things that you love. And you know, sometimes it's not just about the profit, you know, sometimes it's about the experience, you know. So I believe that having fun and networking at these events is probably the most important thing out there, because when you network with other collectors, you know, maybe those collectors will have cards that you want, and they will probably you know, give you the chance to trade with them, you know, and give you better deals than a vendor. But at the end of the day, you know, network with everybody, with vendors, make friends with vendors, with collectors. But at the end of the day, make sure that you are having fun, because if you're not having fun, the hobby won't be fun at all. And for my last tip or trick for your first card show, or second, third, or fourth, or if you're an experienced buyer or experienced Pokemon collector, is always set a budget. If you are going to an event, do not, and I repeat, do not overspend money that you do not have. You know, set a budget and make sure that you do not pass that budget, you know, because then at the end of the day, you don't want to regret overspending money that you shouldn't have. So yeah, make sure that you don't spend your good earned money, you know, make sure that you are only spending what you can. And with that being said, those are my 10 tips and tricks for attending a Pokemon card show. So if I miss anything that you guys think that might be important, go ahead and drop a comment, you know, and let me know what are other things that, you know, you guys can recommend to new people who are just joining the hobby. And you know, if they've never gone to a Pokemon card show, what are things that you guys would suggest? And make sure to like and subscribe, because if you don't like and subscribe, your next PSA order or submission is gonna be all 6s or 7s. But all right, that is it. That is everything that I think that I can give you guys for right now. Again, if I miss anything, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this video. I want to make sure that I make more videos to inform people how to not, you know, get fleeced or, you know, get taken advantage of at Pokemon card shows. As a vendor, I want to make sure that I pass my knowledge to you guys, people who are watching me. I want to make sure that I inform not just new people, but also people who are in the hobby, you know, because you just never know, you know, you never know what kind of vendors are out there, you know. Like I said, I know a lot of vendors are really nice, and you know, they're super friendly, and you know, they will work with you. But I also know, and excuse my language, but I know a lot of shitty vendors out there that will take advantage of people, and they will do it just to make a quick buck. So you know, at the end of the day, this hobby, yes, you know, in a way is to make a little bit of profit, but at the end of the day is, you know, it's a hobby that we want people to enjoy. So I want you to enjoy the hobby. I know with all the negativity and all the back things that have been happening lately with a lot of newer vendors that are joining this hobby just because they see that they can make a quick buck out of selling Pokemon cards, you know, which in my perspective, it kind of makes me a little angry sometimes, that a lot of people just come into this hobby not knowing anything and just thinking that they're gonna make money. Yes, you can make money, but at the same time, you know, it is better to make connections with other people and build a strong relationship with your customers rather than just make a quick buck. But yeah, those are my 2 cents on that. I hope you guys again like this video. Yeah, let me know what you guys think later, and I'll see you guys in the next video.